Hi, I'm Graham Glynn, Assistant Provost and Executive Director for Teaching, Learning and Technology at Stony Brook University, and this is Innovations in Education. In our show, we feature faculty and staff using innovative approaches and best practices to teaching and applications of educational technology that have had a positive effect on student learning. In this episode, I'm joined by Art Lekacos from the College of Business. We'll be discussing the use of personal video-based conferencing tools to help with in-class and in flexible education. Art, welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
Tell me a little bit about what you teach.
Teach business strategy, I teach project management and various other technology-based courses in the MBA program.
And numbers of students in those classes?
Typically we have anywhere from 20 to 40 students at a maximum in each cohort that we run.
Okay. And a couple of years ago you were doing this as a traditional lecture-based class. What have you changed?
Well, what we've done is originally we were using PowerPoint. So again, in business that was a more advanced approach and we wanted our students to have the ability to communicate. But given that most of our MBA students require the flexibility because of their work requirements, we decided to investigate extending Blackboard. And what we did is we started to add various types of digitized course content to Blackboard. So if students were missing our lectures, they would be able to review the content at their own leisure. We then decided to expand that, looking at various types of collaborative software, video conferencing capabilities, and we looked at various software packages to attempt to deliver online courses synchronously to our MBA students who, for example, may be out of town for a week on a business trip. And so we started to look at products like Adobe Breeze, which today is Adobe Captivate, and various other products as well.
Okay. And how exactly are you using them?
What we were doing with them is a number of things. First of all, we're using them for lecture delivery, short lecture delivery, anywhere from 40 to 60 minutes. We're using them to deliver digitized animation, if you will, of products like Excel, spreadsheets, or simulation software, various other tools that students would want to look at. We also use it for team-based discussions. Many of our classes are team-based, and we want the students to meet electronically.
Okay, so Adobe Connect, software that runs on your personal computer using a web camera, and you sit in front of this in your office and record your class and then broadcast that out or do it interactively? Well,
typically we do it interactively. What we want to do with Adobe Connect is give students the real interaction. Mm-hmm. And so we sit in front of the camera. I happen to use my home computer system for that. I have a digitized pad that allows me to write as if I was on a blackboard. And what we do is we have a content lecture that delivers the content, the material. We also have student questions that are coming online. And then we go to various application packages. So it's all done real time in a synchronous mode with the students. Then we save the archive. And the archive now can be reviewed by students at any time. And so it really adds a tremendous tutorial capability to students who need to go back over more complex material, as well as students who unfortunately were unable to attend the online session.
Okay. So you have your video, your voice. What else can you show in?
We have PowerPoints that we use. We use various types of application software packages that we, for example, may want to show you in finance classes. We use Excel. We use in our statistics classes various statistical software packages. In our business class, where we're dealing with business simulation software, we go through the decision-making process. So essentially, any application that you can run on your PC can be demonstrated to the student online with comments and with student interaction.
And so they can actually take control of your software.
Exactly. So for one of the assessment tools, for example, is we may have a team go ahead and perform some type of data analysis to look at a trending for a particular metric. And so other students then can see it. And the nice thing is we can archive that, digitize it. And what will happen is students then can go back and look at the procedural, the steps, the approach to actually viewing this information to craft knowledge from it.
Okay. What about reversing that? What about bringing experts into your classroom?
We've done that also. We've experimented with a number of different computers. In fact, we're looking at mini books now to bring experts into the class. One of the biggest issues we have is Stony Brook is a good 60 minutes away from Manhattan, where we have many of the business leaders. And the problem is to come into a class for a full 80-minute lecture or a 3-hour class is not feasible because we need to deliver content, we need to deliver material, we have our team project. So therefore we looked at how could best provide students with experts in the classroom for short 30-minute periods. And what we decided to do was, the best thing was to use Adobe Connect. This would allow us to have an individual come into the classroom for a 30-minute overview, possibly their area of expertise, and the students would now be able to see them, especially since we now have projectors in many of the classrooms. It became a very, very easy aspect. And what we do is we send to these guest lecturers a free web camera as a thank you, which they simply plug into their USB ports, and they are now able to talk to us. And it's worked out very, very well.
And with Adobe Connect, they just need their web browser.
Exactly. And that's the beauty. That's what we like about Adobe, obviously, is the fact that most of the add-ons are already on a computer system. So there is no download of software, there is no configuration. And we also do our Korean program in the same fashion. We teach a Korean cohort in MS in Management Technology, and we use Adobe Connect to teach 41 students in Korea.
And how do you deal with the time difference in that situation?
Well, we stay up pretty late.
What's the time difference?
13 hours.
Okay, so late here is sort of mid-morning.
So I did a session back at the end of February where I went from 7 o'clock in the evening to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And for them it was whatever, 9 o'clock or something till 4 o'clock. But for me, it's fine because I like working late at night.
Okay. And it's a lot cheaper, obviously, to send these people a video camera than to pay their travel expenses, if they're even willing to take the time to travel from the city to the university.
Exactly. And we are working closely with another university to deliver a joint MBA, a global MBA program along the same line. So we really feel very strongly about this online connectivity and the benefits that it provides to all of the entities that are involved. It's just a wonderful tool.
You mentioned another product, Adobe Captivate. I believe that's used for actually developing tutorials for software.
Adobe Captivate, similar to Camtasia Studio, similar to Adobe Producer, for example, gives us the ability to actually create movies, if you will. And what's nice about Captivate is it gives you bubbles. It gives you little call-out windows. And so very nicely, you can sit down and create a synchronous lecture, if you will, using Adobe Captivate to show students how to go about doing things. And you could add your annotations to it. You can add a whole host of specialized call-out windows that provide students with the ability to essentially listen to a lecture in an asynchronous mode.
So, for example, in Excel, you could be doing some calculations. You could show them which buttons to press.
Sure, exactly.
Little bubble that says click here, and it's very easy for them to follow that.
There are so many data analysis tools, knowledge crafting, that our young MBAs need to be able to understand and look at trends. And so Excel is a wonderful data analysis tool. The key is there are so many features that sometimes it is very difficult to try to remember them unless you use them constantly. And with Captivate, for example, we're able to create some kind of an Adobe Flash file, for example, which will allow us to show these students. And once it's digitized and stored, the students can go back over again. As I mentioned before, these are the more technical characteristics that often students come back and say, I need some assistance. Well, here they now have the ability to go and look at this repeatedly until they become comfortable with the use of the capabilities.
So how have the students reacted to this?
Students are great. I had one of my classes during the summer look at Adobe Connect and to try to ascertain what was important about it. And what they found out was that there are really 4 important entities. Number one, the student. The student benefits from the flexibility, the ability to look at the archives, from the ability to look at the digitized content. So it gives them the capabilities to pursue the knowledge to the depth that they're interested in. Second of all, it provided faculty with our ability to essentially recreate our content delivery and then spend more time possibly on current events, especially in the business courses. We like to try to relate to what is happening in the business community. The third characteristic is the university, where we want to expand our programs but are limited in terms of physical infrastructure. And so, but the one that interests me the most that they came up with was that they found a fourth entity that was improved, the content. And what they found was that the content was improved because now we added a whole series of more dynamic multimedia capabilities. It was more like CNN or Fox, where off to the videos or however you, and it really, they felt that that added a tremendous amount of interest to them in pursuing the knowledge. So really, they were
jumping to a sound bite or a video clip.
Exactly.
Doing it what we would call a change-up.
Exactly, as if you were actually producing something. You know, it does take work and time. There's a lot of investment in getting to that stage, but once you do, you have a tremendous product that students now find fascinating, interesting, and a tremendous learning capability. And as a faculty member, I can spend more time not going over the same concepts of SWOT analysis, for example, or the processes and project management, more into how it relates to today's business environment. What are we doing wrong out there? How could we do it better? So it really allows me to become more expansive in terms of my thinking and so on.
And with the restrictions now on corporate budgets and travel, you're actually teaching the students to use tools that they would be expected to use in business.
And in the MBA program, that's one of the things that, being a very strong technologist and having my own company for 25 years in technology, I would be one that would say teach it. But in reality, we really find that teaching technology isn't as great as using technology. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to sit there and in the background have all these collaborative online tools that essentially the student is now using, like a pencil, like a keyboard, a computer, and it becomes second nature. And then all of a sudden they go back to their business community or wherever they may be, their corporate environment, and they say, you know what we were doing? We're able to communicate. Look at all of the capabilities. So we have these virtual meetings that no longer exist, and with Internet too, with Cisco's telepresence coming on, this is literally the wave of the future. So we're teaching them without literally teaching them.
So you're talking about the wave of the future. Where do you see this going in the future?
I think we're going to have virtual environments where we're going to have telepresence, Cisco moving into Internet too. I think within the next 5 to 7 years, we will have literally virtual environments where we're just as ubiquitous as the phone is in today's business world. I think we'll see this this kind of online synchronous communications.
So instead of seeing each other across video camera, you'll have the sense of actually being in a room, sitting at a table with each other, even though you are thousands of miles apart.
And we've done this in one of our conference rooms in Harriman Hall. We have 2 3M projectors on either wall with 10-foot interactive boards. And what we do is we have a joint meeting going on, if you will. We have classes on both sides and students in the middle. And
so this doesn't have to be a one-on-one. This could be a group-to-group technology.
Which is really, I mean, we look at Manhattan as a very, very important node. And in fact, in the fall, we'll be offering our first 2, quote, blended flexible courses that are based on this model. And we feel very strongly that we'll be able to use Southampton, we'll be able to use Manhattan. And once we get to the point where we've developed more than 2 programs, 8 or 10 courses in this program, then all of a sudden we can start to look outside of the tri-state area for more and more students in our to come into our MBA program.
So you use the term blended courses. Can you define what you mean by that?
What we have decided to call blended courses is a mix of physical courses with virtual online courses in a synchronous mode. And what we've come up with is a template that has students coming 4 Saturdays during the semester, and the other 11 Saturdays, if you will, or 11 days during the week are done virtually through Adobe Connect.
Okay.
Synchronous, real time. It is not an online where we do emails. No emails are allowed in the course at all. And what we do, the key is, again, we do not want to have an email program. And so we've taken the 4 to 6, it varies depending upon our experience right now, 4 to 6 physical classrooms. We've done week 1, week 4, I believe week 9, and week 15. is the typical. Students will come in for a 3-hour class, lecture, team meeting, gathering, and then during the rest of the week they will use various types of synchronous and asynchronous communications with the faculty member with a minimum of 1 hour a week online with the faculty member.
So how do you decide what needs to be done physically in a room with the instructor and what can be done online?
What we found, and over experimentation over the past few years, is most importantly we need to discuss the concept during class 1 with these students so they understand our expectations, they understand what they're going to be doing, how they go about doing it. Most of the other physical classes are not necessarily for content delivery, but more for team collaboration, physical face-to-face. We could, even in business, we can collaborate, but when we want to sign the contract, we need to be physically face-to-face.
Right.
So there needs to be some face-to-face contact. And that's really what we're planning on using, the physical. The reason for week 15 is most of our business classes, our MBA classes, end with a presentation, which then would be done in person, and the group being there. We feel the interaction, the peer relationships are extremely important. But typically, it is more for team collaboration, physical contact, communications, rather than content delivery. We think the internet, the digitized formats give us a tremendous ability to display content in multimedia forms and therefore interest the student.
Now, can the students get together in groups independently and use this technology?
Yes, we've set up breakout rooms in Adobe Connect. We also have told students to use other collaborative software, you know, Windows Meeting, for example, that they may have. Some companies, you know, we use different products. But we strongly suggest that the students collaborate. And we actually track that information as well. We expect the student teams to spend at least 60 minutes a week in some form of online collaborative media. Okay. Where they are discussing, they're going over, they're transferring files, they're working together on their strategies, their simulation business decisions, and so on.
Okay. So it sounds like Adobe Connect has enabled you to increase access to education for many students that wouldn't normally not have been able to take this degree program, and has surpassed the physical limitations of the classrooms and the spaces on campus. You know, we're always short of classroom space and time to be able to do things.
Yes, exactly. And not only that, what it's shown is it's branding, we believe, the MBA program here at Stony Brook as a technology advanced concept. You know, as opposed to teaching for technology management, we are employing it. Right. And when you go out there, businesses need operational efficiency. And one of the things you learn very quickly is technology never gives you a competitive advantage. It only gives you operational efficiency. The use of that technology in some proprietary format may. And so what we want students to understand is the breadth and scope of what is available to them. And we feel that at least in our MBA program, that we really want students to start to understand how best to communicate, how best to become operationally effective in delivering processes to their corporate functions.
So all this sounds radically different from what you used to do 2 years ago. How do you feel about your teaching now?
Being a technologist, I enjoy it very much, but we've started to experiment with faculty who find emailing very difficult, and we're having them actually incorporate our first 2 courses are taking a very technologically astute faculty member and one, as I said, who has tremendous difficulty in sending emails. And they're both creating these blended courses, these flexible courses. I find it exciting because I'm able to, I spend a lot more time, but I'm able to sit down and all of a sudden an idea comes into my head, my mind, I start thinking, I'll sit down and I'll try to digitize it. And then it just sits off in a corner with a whole bunch of other little modules, little components that eventually get pieced together. And our goals are to craft a library, so when our accounting course is delivered electronically, eventually I can use the expertise of our accounting professors and say, you don't remember a balance sheet or a P&L statement? Please, you know, go and look at this module. So I find it exciting. It's given us a tremendous ability to expand the delivery of our content.
So you can actually even link, I believe, from within like websites to the recordings, so that if someone needs to go back and review the accounting principles, you could actually link to a...
Exactly. And in fact, one of the nice features that we found in the new version, I believe, Adobe Connect, is the ability to save it as a Windows media file, or even an Adobe media file. And so what I've done is I've saved all of my lectures that I've done and posted them on Blackboard. And I told students you can now go out there and at your own leisure look at these lectures as backup supplements to physical lectures. But eventually the goal is for the student to spend the time looking at the content, and then when we meet either in class or on the internet, and my perspective, they both will eventually be synonymous, that at that point I can start discussing, what are the issues with our models? Why did we have these problems? What's Doha come up with that indicates we need to look at different ways of managing business? As opposed to teaching you the content, you now will be able to look at my lecture. So it's far more exciting for me because I can look at state of the art, current technology, current environments, current events.
Do you think the students are learning more?
I think the students are learning considerably more. Why? Because they're spending more time. They have more supplemental tools that allow them to pursue this knowledge. And so as we build up our library, they will run their own threads. So those students who are interested in marketing, for example, may look at data analysis that we've crafted for marketing research. Those who are interested in human resources or employee characteristics may look at data associated with skill levels and so on. So I think what's happening as we build up more of our library, we're going to have students looking at different paths and expanding their own knowledge.
What were the biggest challenges you encountered in adopting this new approach?
I think convincing all of the student and faculty components that this was not a substitute, but rather a supplement to teaching. It was a new form of teaching. 2,000 years ago it was one-on-one. As we became more managerial and had a larger number of students, we went to classrooms, we went to chalkboards, went to whiteboards and PowerPoints, and that this was just a natural progression. It doesn't literally replace, it supplements. How did we use the telegraph? We used the optical telegraph. We had the electrical telegraph. Then we had the acoustic telegraph, which became the phone.
And each of those had its own resistors. People thought,
exactly.
That'll go away if I just wait long enough.
The Europeans were so far behind in the electric telegraph because they had the acoustic telegraph. So you always see core rigidity, which is something we experience in business where the infrastructure does not want to change because they believe that what they are doing is the appropriate way and nothing can be done any better. And it's interesting, Bill Gates has a statement that Microsoft is always 2 years away from going out of business. And the reason for that is because he realizes, as do most business people, that change is the one common factor in business. And that we can't sit back on our laurels and say, this is the only way to do something. So core rigidity, but this was expected. Human nature, we prefer not to change unless we see a benefit. And once you start showing a benefit, automatic exams in Blackboard, for example, automatic grading that helps a faculty member assign more dynamic homework, all of a sudden they start to realize, well, this is really a wonderful tool. Just like the automobile allowed us to go further than we were able to go by walking.
Now, I know you're using the internet personal computer-based video conferencing tools. There are also room-based tools. So a question for the audience is, do you know the relative advantages of the web-based versus a room-based system? The answer when we return. Joining us is Jennifer Adams, an educational technologist within TLT. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, how are you doing?
So what is the difference between these personal computer-based conferencing systems and the big room-based systems?
Well, the room-based systems are very heavy on video, and they have great quality video and audio. When you move to the web conferencing systems, it really has a lot more interaction. It's about sharing documents, being able to collaboratively mark up documents and work together that way.
And there's a lot of more flexibility with the web-based systems?
The web-based system has a lot of potential that most people don't even go into when they're using it. There's areas for polling, so you can get immediate feedback, similar to you would with clickers in a lecture environment. You have back-end reporting also, so that you can go back in, and even if you had 200 people participating in a room environment, you can see what people absorbed, how they comprehended things, and assess your lecture.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to set up and try and replicate what Art's doing, how would they go about doing that?
Well, they simply have to ask for an account. They can do that through a form that's on our website or by contacting me directly through email.
Okay, and do they then have to schedule the room with you?
They really don't. Usually I tell them, I set it up for them. We set up the initial people who will be experimenting to begin with as kind of owners of the room. Mm-hmm. And then I tell them, go ahead and play for a little bit and then call me back. And then we set up a one-on-one or a small group session, and we go into what questions they had. The scheduling is all up to them. The rooms are all permanent rooms. Even they seem to have a scheduling component when you look at them in the GUI, but they're really persistent.
What is the most common technical issue that new users have with the system?
I think usually they need to go through a selecting the camera process and an audio setup wizard that's built into the system, and that's about it. Like one of the things that happened recently is one person wasn't able to hear the other person, mm-hmm. went through, had a little talk, oh, did you do this, did you do that? And it finally came to light, oh, they didn't have a microphone. You know, it's sometimes it's the most low common denominator thing, and it gets overlooked.
Art, your experience?
Yeah, I'm interested in if we used this in-classroom system, would we be able to, the digitized form, could we then distribute that via the internet? Could it be posted to Blackboard?
With the room-based video conferencing, I don't think that recording is really a feature that is used. So that is another big advantage to web conferencing, is that it does have the recording right mm-hmm. there.
Okay. And normally you have to have specialized facilities set up. So while the quality of the video is much greater, you can only do it to specialized rooms. Whereas with the video-based system, with the internet-based system, you go from one office to another or one classroom to another. There's no special facilities needed.
But the final product that's produced from this in-classroom system is digitized, that I can then provide a link to for students to review and look at?
Well, if you say we have a video conference room over in Javits, mm-hmm. you know, it's a small conference room, first of all. It's not going to hold a lot of people. If you do a recording of that, of course you could digitize it and have it posted somewhere on one of our servers.
Okay. So, so that would be more for meeting collaboration then?
Yeah, that's really more trying to get that virtual meeting room where you're pulling one more person into the meeting.
Now, do you have hardware and software that will allow us to digitize a lecture?
Well, we do. It's we have this new system. It's Echo 360. That's built into certain lecture halls. The Javits Lecture Center is pretty much fully equipped with that. And we also have a lecture hall over in the ESS building.
But the intent of that system is sort of a one-way delivery. You're recording a class that's presented and it gets distributed. There's no interactivity built into that system. Okay. So we have now a whole spectrum where we have the very flexible Adobe Connect system where you can go to any facility where you have a computer and an internet connection, to the room-based systems which are high quality, but not so good at sharing applications and whiteboarding and so on, but very good if you wanted to have like where presence of the audience is very important, where you want high quality audio, high quality video. You're making important decisions and having very, very important conversations. To the Adobe, Echo 360 system, which is essentially just recording what was done in a classroom and later on asynchronously distributed out to the audience.
Interestingly, too, I think that it does go from Adobe Connect being where you could have the most complexity for the faculty and the students to something, you're pulling it back a little bit, the complexity in the video classroom, and Echo 360 becomes completely transparent for everyone.
But a lot of our faculty then, at least in the College of Business, that are not experimenting yet, would be able to digitize their lecture if they use this Echo 360. So it would be the most painless approach to initially starting out with some of our blended programs. So I would find that extremely beneficial, at least to start seeing the benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good way of ramping people up might be to start Echo 360 and then move into the actual synchronous video conferencing environments.
And then the video conferencing room itself that's over in Javits would be more for meetings, where we
Right.
needed to really want that of high quality,
That
a form of
telepresence.
telepresence
Right.
environment,
Yep.
which I think is a great practice for anyone who's eventually conferencing and so on. We'd be able to use it in that fashion.
Yep.
Thank you, Art and Jennifer, for joining me on today's show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you have any further questions for either of our guests, you can post questions on our blog site at tlt.sternbrook.edu, where we'll also post the direct contact information for both of our guests. I hope to see you next time on another exciting episode of Innovations in Education.